Would you pay $70,000 more for the exact same SUV just because it has a different logo on the hood? Most people already have, and they have no idea. Automakers don't just share parts between brands, they share entire vehicles, then carve out price tiers based purely on badge prestige. In this video, 12 SUVs that are secretly the same car wearing a different name. By the end, you'll never look at a dealership lot the same way again. And the final reveal genuinely involves a super car maker and an ultra-luxury British brand sharing one chassis. Let's count down. Number 12, Acura MDX and Honda Pilot. The Acura MDX and Honda Pilot share the exact same Honda-built unibody platform, the same 3.5-liter, naturally aspirated V6, and the same fundamental 9-speed automatic transmission underneath two badges from the exact same parent company. Acura's version adds a more aggressive front fascia, a noticeably more upscale cabin, and genuine super handling all-wheel drive on certain trims. But the bones underneath remain unmistakably Pilot. The price gap, though, is where this pairing gets genuinely interesting. A loaded Pilot Elite starts creeping past $50,000, while a comparably equipped MDX climbs well past that, justified almost entirely by badge positioning and interior trim, rather than any fundamentally different driving experience. Honda has run this exact strategy for decades, treating Acura less like a separate engineering division and more like a premium finishing line for vehicles Honda already built from the ground up. Mechanics who service both vehicles routinely confirm the timing belt intervals, suspension bushings, and even the factory torque specs are identical between the two, since the underlying engineering documentation genuinely never diverged. Acura dealers rarely advertise this connection directly, for the obvious reason that highlighting it would undercut the entire premium pricing strategy built around the badge alone. But an in-house Honda twin is one thing. The next pairing involves two entirely separate companies that just happen to build nearly identical three-row SUVs on a shared platform. Number 11, Hyundai Santa Fe and Kia Sorento. The Hyundai Santa Fe and Kia Sorento share Hyundai Motor Group's underlying mid-size SUV architecture, the same turbocharged four-cylinder engine family, and remarkably similar dimensions across nearly every measurement that matters. Wheelbase, cargo volume, and seating capacity all land within inches of each other. Hyundai and Kia operate as genuinely separate brands with separate dealership networks, but underneath the styling, they're drawing from the same corporate parts bin. Here's the detail most buyers miss entirely. The two brands deliberately tune their suspensions differently, with Kia generally leaning toward a marginally sportier feel, while Hyundai prioritizes a smoother, more isolated ride. A calculated difference designed to give cross-shoppers a genuine reason to pick one over the other, even though the platform underneath is fundamentally the same. Pricing stays close enough between the two that the real decision usually comes down to styling preference in whichever dealership happens to offer the better incentive that month. Hyundai Motor Group engineers reportedly road test both SUVs on the exact same proving grounds before any styling differentiation work even begins, confirming the ride and handling targets start from one shared baseline. Both brands even source the same infotainment hardware and many identical safety sensors from common suppliers, meaning the technology experience inside either SUV is functionally interchangeable despite the different badge on the steering wheel. But shared corporate architecture between sister brands is expected. The next pairing involves a luxury division charging a genuine premium for a mainstream SUV wearing a nicer suit. Number 10, Lincoln Aviator and Ford Explorer. The Lincoln Aviator and Ford Explorer share Ford's rear-wheel drive CD6 platform, the same twin turbocharged engine architecture, and even the same plug-in hybrid powertrain option across both badges. Lincoln adds genuinely nicer materials, a more isolated cabin, and exclusive features like a panoramic glass roof and a more sophisticated air suspension setup. But the core engineering, the chassis, the drivetrain layout, the fundamental hardpoints comes directly from the Explorer, parked one aisle over at the Ford dealership. The price difference is substantial. A well-equipped Explorer ST tops out considerably below a comparably trimmed Aviator, with the gap stretching even wider once you start adding Lincoln exclusive options. Lincoln's entire modern strategy has leaned into this approach deliberately, positioning itself less as an independent engineering brand and more as Ford's dedicated luxury finishing department. A strategy that's kept Lincoln alive specifically because building unique platforms from scratch would be financially unjustifiable for a brand this size. Both vehicles are even assembled at the same Chicago factory, rolling down the same production line before splitting off for brand-specific interior installation. Ford engineers have publicly acknowledged tuning the Aviator's air suspension with a deliberately softer initial response specifically to justify Lincoln's added cost over the firmer riding Explorer. But a Ford-Lincoln twin is a familiar story. The next pairing involves Nissan's luxury division doing something nearly identical with its own three-row SUV. Number 9. Infiniti, QX60, and Nissan Pathfinder. The Infiniti QX60 and Nissan Pathfinder share Nissan's D-platform architecture, the same proven 3.5-liter, naturally aspirated V6, and the same 9-speed automatic transmission, with Infiniti layering on quilted leather, additional sound insulation, and a noticeably more premium-feeling cabin on top of fundamentally identical mechanical bones. Drive the two back to back, and the difference is almost entirely about hushed refinement rather than anything happening underneath the floor pan. Infiniti's pricing strategy here mirrors Lincoln's almost exactly. A loaded Pathfinder Platinum sits considerably below a comparably equipped QX60 Autograph with that gap-funding interior materials and badge positioning rather than any meaningfully different engineering underneath. Nissan has run this exact playbook with Infiniti for decades, treating the luxury brand as a premium trim ceiling for vehicles that already exist in the mainstream Nissan lineup, rather than commissioning genuinely separate platforms. Independent transmission specialists confirm both SUVs share identical CVT-adjacent 9-speed programming logic, meaning a shift quality complaint on one almost always shows up identically on the other. Nissan dealership staff have been known to quietly steer budget-conscious shoppers toward the Pathfinder specifically once they realize how little separates it, mechanically, from its pricier Infiniti sibling. But badge engineering inside one company's own lineup is one thing. The next pairing involves Toyota's luxury division doing the exact same trick on a platform so widely shared it touches sedans, minivans, and crossovers across two entire brands. Number 8. Lexus RX and Toyota Highlander. The Lexus RX and Toyota Highlander both ride on Toyota's TNGA A-K platform, the same modular underpinning shared across the Camry, the Avalon, the Sienna minivan, and the Lexus ES sedan, making this one of the most widely distributed chassis architectures in the entire industry. Toyota historically introduces a new generation of this platform on the Highlander first, then brings the refined version to the RX roughly a year later, meaning the mainstream SUV genuinely functions as Lexus's own pre-production testbed. In Japan, the connection is even more direct. The original RX was sold domestically as the Toyota Harrier, the exact same vehicle wearing Toyota's own badge in its home market rather than Lexus's. Lexus differentiates the RX with a more isolated cabin, additional sound deadening, and a noticeably smoother ride tune. But engineers on forums tracking both platforms confirm the engine, transmission, transfer case, and rear differential carry over directly between generations that overlap. Toyota's own parts catalog lists several Highlander and RX components under identical part numbers, a detail independent repair shops have used for years to source cheaper Toyota-branded replacements for Lexus owners. That shared parts bin extends deep enough that some RX owners have successfully retrofitted Highlander-sourced suspension components without any documented compatibility issues whatsoever. But a shared platform spanning sedans and minivans is impressive in scope. The next pairing involves two British luxury brands building what's genuinely the same aluminum chassis at the same factory, with the only meaningful difference being whether you sit in the car or on it. Number 7. Range Rover, Velar, and Jaguar F-Pace. The Range Rover Velar and Jaguar F-Pace share Jaguar Land Rover's D7, a aluminum platform, identical wheelbases, the same Ingenium engine lineup, and are assembled at the exact same factory in Solihull, England. JLR's own UK boss summarized the philosophical difference with a memorable line: "You sit in a Jaguar, but you sit on a Range Rover," meaning the actual mechanical differences boil down almost entirely to seating position and suspension tuning, rather than anything structurally distinct underneath. One F-Pace forum member, who later built and priced out an equivalent Velar configuration, found it landed roughly $20,000 higher than their own Jaguar, despite both vehicles sharing the same body architecture, the same engines, and nearly identical dimensions. The Velar does add genuine off-road specific hardware on certain trims, air suspension, and an upgraded terrain response system, but the fundamental aluminum structure and engine choices remain identical to the Jaguar sitting on the showroom floor right next to it. JLR's own chief program engineer oversees both vehicles simultaneously, a structural arrangement that all but guarantees any genuine mechanical improvement to one immediately becomes available to the other. Even the center console storage cubby, the door handle mechanisms, and the climate control hardware carry over directly between the two badges with only minor trim-level cosmetic changes. But a $20,000 gap for shared bones is striking. The next pairing involves Toyota and Lexus doing the exact same trick, except this time on the platform underneath their toughest, most rugged off-roaders. Number 6. Lexus. GX and Toyota Land Cruiser Prado. The Lexus GX and the International Toyota Land Cruiser Prado share Toyota's body-on-frame GA-F platform, the same genuine off-road hardware, and largely the same drivetrain architecture underneath two badges occupying very different price brackets globally. The GX wraps that shared platform in leather, additional sound insulation, and considerably more advanced infotainment, but the fundamental truck chassis, suspension geometry, and mechanical durability come directly from the Prado that international markets have trusted for decades. What makes this pairing genuinely notable is how differently the two vehicles get marketed, depending on where you're standing. In the United States, the GX is positioned as a genuine luxury SUV competing against German rivals, while the Prado, in markets across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, is sold as a rugged, no-nonsense workhorse trusted by aid organizations and mining operations. Same bones, completely different marketing identity, depending entirely on which side of the planet you're shopping from. Toyota engineers reportedly validate the GX's off-road durability targets using the exact same torture test data collected from Prado fleet vehicles operating in the harshest climates on Earth. A handful of import specialists in the United States have even begun sourcing genuine right-hand drive Prados, specifically because buyers recognize they're functionally identical to a GX at a fraction of the price. But a luxury badge reframing a rugged platform is one thing. The next pairing involves two brands selling the literal same plug-in hybrid SUV, just with a different grille bolted on. Number 5. Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV and Nissan Rogue PHEV. Here's one most people genuinely don't know. The Nissan Rogue plug-in hybrid is not a Nissan-engineered vehicle at all. It's a directly rebadged Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, built specifically through the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance, sharing the exact same plug-in hybrid powertrain, the same battery architecture, and the same fundamental platform underneath two completely different grilles. Nissan doesn't currently sell any conventional self-charging hybrid SUVs in the United States, making this rebadge arrangement specifically how the brand fills that exact gap in its own lineup, without engineering a hybrid system from scratch. The styling differs noticeably on the outside, and the interiors get brand-specific trim treatments, but the core mechanical identity, engine, electric motors, battery pack, and transmission is genuinely, completely Mitsubishi underneath Nissan's own badge. Alliance engineers reportedly debated badging the vehicle as a Nissan from the very start of development, specifically because retooling Mitsubishi's own factory line for a second nameplate proved cheaper than building anything original. Owners comparing online forums for both vehicles routinely find identical fault codes and identical recall bulletins. Since the two SUVs share their entire electronic architecture down to the wiring harness, but one rebadged hybrid is surprising. The next pairing involves two GM badges sharing the exact same full-size platform with a luxury price gap that genuinely shocks first-time shoppers. Number 4, Cadillac, Escalade, and GMC Yukon Denali. The Cadillac Escalade and GMC Yukon Denali both ride on General Motors' T1 body-on-frame platform, share the same available engines, and carry an identical maximum towing rating of 8,400 pounds when properly equipped. Two badges built on literally the same truck-grade chassis underneath. The differentiation happens almost entirely above the frame rails rather than within it. The Escalade adds a genuinely massive 55-inch diagonal touchscreen and standard Super Cruise hands-free driving technology, while a top-tier Yukon Denali Ultimate climbs to roughly $103,300, with open-pore wood trim and 16-way massaging seats, competing directly with Escalade-level luxury at a meaningfully lower price point. GM dealership staff frequently report customers cross-shopping the two side by side, discovering, often for the first time, that the door chimes, seatbelt mechanisms, and even the factory tow hitch wiring are completely interchangeable parts. A fully loaded Yukon Denali Ultimate genuinely outprices several lower Escalade trims, creating the strange reality where the non-luxury GMC badge sometimes costs more than the Cadillac sitting next to it. But two GM badges sharing a frame is a familiar trick. The next pairing involves GM doing it again, except this time the two SUVs are functionally just different lengths of the exact same body. Number 3, Chevrolet, Tahoe and Chevrolet Suburban. The Chevrolet Tahoe and Chevrolet Suburban share the exact same front structure, the exact same engine lineup, and the exact same interior architecture from the windshield forward. The only fundamental difference is a stretched wheelbase and an extended rear body section on the Suburban, adding genuine third-row legroom and substantially more cargo volume behind it. Chevrolet has run both nameplates simultaneously for decades, specifically because the demand for Tahoe but longer has remained strong enough to justify keeping a stretched variant in production rather than forcing buyers into a single compromise size. The price difference between equivalent trims stays relatively modest given how much actual vehicle you gain in the Suburban's extra length, which is precisely why families who routinely haul more cargo or carry more passengers tend to default toward the Suburban once they directly compare the two. GM's own engineering documentation treats the Suburban explicitly as a wheelbase variant of the Tahoe, rather than a separate model entirely. The same internal classification GM uses for genuine badge-engineered twins elsewhere in its lineup. Independent appraisers note that used Suburbans with the same mileage and trim as a comparable Tahoe routinely sell for only a few $1,000s more, reflecting just how minor the actual engineering difference between them really is. But a stretched body on the same chassis is one thing. The next pairing involves a German automaker, an Austrian-built factory, and a price gap that runs into the tens of thousands for what's mechanically the same SUV. Number 2, Volkswagen Touareg and Porsche Cayenne. The Volkswagen Touareg and the Porsche Cayenne share Volkswagen Group's MLB Evo platform, were originally developed together as a joint Porsche VW project, and are even assembled in genuinely separate factories. The Touareg in Bratislava, Slovakia, and the Cayenne at a dedicated Porsche facility in Leipzig, Germany, despite both vehicles starting from the exact same fundamental architecture. A buyer comparing the two directly described the experience plainly. The Touareg feels slightly smoother and leans toward family-oriented practicality, while the Cayenne delivers louder, more aggressive acceleration and a sportier overall character. Differences that come almost entirely from suspension tuning and engine calibration rather than anything structurally distinct underneath. The price gap, though, is dramatic. A well-equipped Touareg starts in the $50,000, while a comparably sized Cayenne pushes well past $80,000, funding Porsche's brand prestige and performance tuning rather than any fundamentally different engineering platform. Porsche's own engineers reportedly insisted on a stiffer suspension calibration and a more aggressive throttle map, specifically to preserve the brand's performance reputation against its considerably cheaper Volkswagen sibling. Mechanics servicing both vehicles routinely confirm that several suspension and electrical components carry identical Volkswagen Group part numbers, meaning genuine Porsche replacement parts sometimes cost dramatically more for functionally the same physical component. But a $30,000 gap between a VW and a Porsche is significant. The final pairing on this list takes that exact same shared chassis and stretches the price gap into six figures. Number 1, Bentley Bentayga and Lamborghini Urus. Here's the reveal that should genuinely change how you look at ultra-luxury SUV pricing forever. The Bentley Bentayga and the Lamborghini Urus, a hand-finished British luxury flagship, and an Italian supercar manufacturer's super SUV, both ride on the exact same Volkswagen Group MLB Evo platform shared with the considerably cheaper Audi Q7, Porsche Cayenne, and Volkswagen Touareg sitting several price tiers below them. The platform's engineering team built it specifically to accommodate this kind of extreme brand stretching, sharing core engine mounting positions, firewalls, and even a 48-volt electrical subsystem powering the active anti-roll bar system across every single vehicle wearing this architecture, regardless of badge. The price spread is genuinely staggering as a result. The Bentayga and Urus both reach well past $200,000 fully equipped, built on fundamentally the same bones as a Volkswagen Touareg starting in the $50,000. Meaning the gap between the cheapest and most expensive vehicle on this single shared platform exceeds $150,000. Bentley hand finishes its Bentayga's interior with traditional British leatherwork and wood veneer techniques passed down through generations of craftsmen, while Lamborghini tunes the Urus's suspension and exhaust notes specifically to deliver supercar drama. Both companies layering genuinely extraordinary craftsmanship onto a chassis engineered by Volkswagen's own modular platform team. A supercar manufacturer and a hand-built British luxury house, both building their flagship SUVs on the exact same modular Volkswagen chassis, proving that even at the absolute top of the market, the badge tells you far less about what's underneath than the price tag wants you to believe. 12 SUVs and the lesson running through every single one. The badge on the grille tells you far less about what's actually underneath than most buyers ever realize. Some of these differences are genuinely meaningful: suspension tuning, sound insulation, materials quality. Others are almost entirely psychological, priced purely on brand prestige rather than anything mechanically distinct. Which one shocked you the most? Tell us in the comments and subscribe because we're not done exposing the badges hiding in plain sight.